Well, we'll go back to education discussions a little bit later. Right now, let's try and figure out what's happening with our electricity. Trade union Solidarity wants the National Energy Regulator, or Nersa, to remove the bottlenecks in private energy generation. It's gone as far as to serve Nersa with legal papers on the issue as well. Well, Eskom continues to unleash these rolling blackouts. Stage 4 now. I know I sound like a stuck record, but stage 4 now, stage 5 back in place from 4 p.m. this afternoon. So let's bring in Head of Solidarity's Research Centre. It's Connie Mulder joining us this morning. Hello to you, Connie. Talk to me about the legal papers. What are you trying to get right? Good morning.
Good morning, Gareth. I think what we're trying to get right is to get light, actually, not get right necessarily. These are the first legal papers in what we're expecting to be a long legal battle. But this is just a PIA application, access to information application. And we're simply asking Nersa, how many registrations for private generation have you received? How many have you approved? How many of these are actually connected to the network and then and providing power to the network as a first step towards trying to figure out why this isn't happening at the speed that we want? From our standpoint, and actually I think it's quite simple, Eskom cannot turn this around. Eskom cannot do it. They cannot generate the necessary electricity, and that means any additional capacity that we get onto the network will be from either the private or the community sector. And if we're not trying to incentivize that and trying to get as many operators as possible onto the network, then we're going to be stuck with another turnaround plan for, I think it's 12 to 18 months, which we've been promised several times before. In 2014, by President Ramaphosa, we were promised within 18 months load shedding will be something of the past, and we're just plain not buying it this time. We need to get private generators on the network. We need to make sure that we get as much electrons on there as possible. And Nersa at the moment is holding one of the purse strings with the registration process, making it difficult for private generators to get on the network and then to start selling electricity to different clients.
Connie, forgive me, I know there's always a lot of acronyms being thrown around, so I just want to make sure. I've only had 3 cups of coffee. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as you. So you're talking about private energy supply. Is that exactly the same thing as the IPP issue? Is this what we're talking about?
No, it's not exactly the same. The IPP is the Eskom buying the power from private suppliers. We're talking about literally people in a municipality saying we're going to supply to the municipality, or we're going to supply to a specific business or specific homes, and we are going to, it's just an entrepreneur saying, I think it's worth it to put a couple of solar panels on this yard, maybe put a couple of batteries in, and then to start selling electricity to the area around us. Now, this is possible. It has been possible, and President Ramaphosa's announcement last year should have made it much more accessible. Yet we're not seeing the amount of numbers that we would like. Now, there are a couple of reasons. The one is that the registration process is much less onerous than the licensing process, but it's still way too much for a registration process. Registration should be an online portal where I'm simply informing you I'm going to be generating electricity. You can in any case not connect to the network without technical people helping you, so it's not that massive of a risk. But the second part would be Nersa also has a mandate to then publish tariff guidelines, and from what we've seen, there should be a feed-in tariff guideline as well as a wheeling tariff guideline, and none of that has happened. So we're also asking in our PIA application, what are these guidelines that you've published, and where are they? They were announced last year by the president, but we haven't seen anything come, because we need to give investors and entrepreneurs a bit of certainty around what will the costs actually be if I'm going to try and generate power privately and try and sell it privately, and we need to incentivize people to do that and to get on the network as quickly as possible.
No, absolutely. I was about to say, if there's an incentive for anybody in this economy to make a bit of money, especially after installing something like solar, I think a lot more people would do it. It does beg the question as well, though, is why it seems, based on the fact you're now having to go to the legal route and serve legal papers, why Nersa is making this so difficult. It seems the solution is right on their doorstep, but this is the criticism levelled at government, at Eskom, at Nersa, that there just seems to be no political will or government will to try and solve the problem for themselves.
Gareth, well, that's exactly our frustration, is we're in this massive crisis. We've been here for 16 years, but it's worsening. And there's just no urgency, and we're not seeing that happen. Government suddenly announces a 12 to 18-month plan, But the question is, why now? We were in stage 6 last year as well, and the plan is nothing new. It's not like a new technology game. It's just the dragging of feet is something that is frustrating us to no end. The same with, if you've read yesterday, Nersa rejected Eskom's application for a 3,000 megawatt gas plant because they didn't follow the exact right process. But now they have to start over. This is where, as a country, we're in a position now where I understand that we need to follow processes, but we need to start thinking about getting power onto the grid as well. And from our point of view, what's happening is Nersa is doing the bare minimum at the slowest possible legal pace with most of these things, to try and frustrate the process. Why? I have no idea. From what we've experienced with government, they try to keep control of the process. They still want Eskom and the state to be generating electricity, when the harsh reality on the ground is that's not going to happen. Eskom will always be a mix, part of the mix of the energy mix, but it's not going to be the main supplier of electricity in 10 years' time, for the simple reason it cannot. It has to decommission almost 14,000 megawatt of coal-fired plants, and no additional capacity has been planned by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. So none of that is coming online, and the only additional capacity will be the ones we build ourselves. And it seems like government is resistant to the idea that communities will have to start generating power themselves and powering their neighborhoods themselves. We don't understand why you want to fight this. It's the only way that we're going to get out of this. And other countries have actually quite successfully, with small-scale generation, handled small, short-term critical generation losses. And we're steadfastly refusing to learn any lessons from the 2000s, and we're going back to central big power plants from the 1980s and the 1970s.